Furious feminist bang Bezos babes. Well, this last flight of the New Shepard rocket, Blue Origins, has kicked up a storm of controversy. Some people are even saying it's fake, and they give a myriad of reasons that they think that this mission did not actually fly these six ladies into space. Well, we're going to get all into that. This is Greg Allison with Galactic Greg. It's coming to you from my Mars base one in the high desert of Arizona. Yeah, it's just like a Mars base out here. It's all red sand, except for it's snowing right now. We have a blizzard, like the blizzard of controversy around this flight. So, guys, first off, this was the first all female mission to space since the very first female mission to space, which occurred on 16 June of 1963, almost 22 years ago, flown by Valentina Tereskova of Russia. So, in that, it has some significance. Now, that said, the only thing I truly see wrong with this, aside from Lauren Sanchez's apparently somewhat botched plastic surgery, was the off the charts vanity. But that's what you get when you get a bunch of rich media stars on together at one time. It's they make their living in front of the camera, and I don't know, they overplayed it, and now they got a lot of backlash. But more than that, some people are saying it's fake. So I'm going to get all into that. I'm going to talk all about it. So buckle up, guys. Well, this mission had pop singer Katy Perry, the broadcast journalist Gail King, who was actually 70 years old, not the oldest one to fly flown on New Shepard, which the New Shepard, this was the 31st mission, the 11th of which carried people. Okay, so it was the 11th manned. Maybe we can't say manned in this case. Flight. Person, human. It's hard to say that. Man still fits. It had Lauren Sanchez, who's the philanthropist and the fiance of Jeff Bezos. Just so happens that I can't even talk. Yeah, that suggests that she gives money to charity, philanthropist. Well, sometimes I get my tongue tangled. Anyway, we had Aisha Bowe, who's actually a NASA rocket scientist, or was one. And we had Amanda Nugent, who is a bioastronautics research scientist. And then we had film producer Carrie Ann Flynn. So, what was this all about? A lot of people have thrown a lot of chaff out there. It was an 11-minute flight. So just bear that in mind. Now, a lot of people, one of the consternations a lot of people have saying, "Oh, it didn't happen. It didn't happen because if it had flown to space, the capsule when it came back would have been all burned up." No, if it had scorch marks on it, no, not for a suborbital flight. They flew 100 kilometers, a little over 100 kilometers, what I'm told. The Von Karman line is 62 miles high. I'm told they actually flew 65 miles in an 11-minute mission. And when you fly to that altitude, you have a lot less velocity than going orbital. Orbital requires that you have about 17,500 miles per hour. They only travel 2,235 miles per hour. Far, far, far less, but it's not linear. See, kinetic energy equals 1/2 mass times the velocity squared. So it's the velocity number times the velocity number. So you get really big numbers. It goes up at a very steep curve. So it's it's a exponential curve that it increases. So the energy goes way up real fast as velocity goes up. So it had just a small, tiny fraction of the kinetic energy of an orbital flight. That's how they can pull it off with a small booster when that big capsule is sitting on top, which everybody makes fun of, saying it looks something like a human member. Well, that big capsule on top gives people a little more room to move around and flip and enjoy the weightless experience, although they were packed in there. So again, just bear in mind, when you're going suborbital, you're not, going nearly as high, nowhere near as fast, and nowhere near the energy. So you're not going to scorch the capsule unless something blows up or catches fire. So that's the good thing, which makes that kind of flight a little safer, potentially. But, hey, there's Allison's rules of rockets. I've always said this since I was doing my own rockets way back when. Rockets go boom. That's law one. Law two is rockets have always gone boom. And law three is rockets always will go boom. So, yeah, after any rocket flight, I'd be tempted to get off and kiss the ground, too. Some people would criticize, oh, she looked like she went to the moon. She got to kiss the ground. You fly on a rocket, you ought to kiss the ground when you land. Any rocket. It is risky to have to play with rockets. There may be some other technology out there, but we may not get to play with it. I've talked about some of that earlier, and I'll talk more about the why-ofs of that in the future. Not a subject for this video, though. We're talking about this particular flight. But they did cross the von Karman line, and that's that's a line that a lot of people have been given astronaut wings for crossing in the past. Some said they weren't astronauts; they were just riders. Well, they were just riders, and we've had other riders that we flew before we ever flew people. One of them used to be at U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Alabama, Miss Baker, until she passed away. She was a monkey with a tail. There was a couple of those, and they flew some chimpanzees. Many of you may remember Ham, one of the ones that flew. Another oddball thing, of course, was the logo. And that was really odd. Yeah, it looked like a Baphomet if you turned it upside down. Yeah, that was some strange business, whatever that was all about. But anyway, so what we got to bear in mind is that I'll tell you what, let's just go straight to look at some of these videos. We're going to talk about some of the consternations people have with this mission. So we're going to go straight here to the flight and look at this. I'm going to blow this up. I tried this video earlier today, but my laptop crashed on me. So hopefully it won't do that again. I'm having some power issues with this thing. So let's see here. Now, why she got the Daisy? Some people were criticizing her for having the Daisy. Well, her daughter's named Daisy, so theoretically she's trying to inspire her daughter to doing great things. Nothing wrong with that. But you can see a lot of people are saying, well, there's wind in the capsule, there's no wind in space. Well, they're inside a capsule. The capsule has air, but there's no wind. What you see is they're in free fall. They're basically floating, which means the hair is going to not be settled down because it don't have the gravitational, well, there is gravity, but you don't have the effects of it. I can explain that later. But so basically what happens is your hair is going to float up, they're going to float up, and as they're jerking around, the hair actually just responds to that, and it kind of jerks around too. Now you can watch them. Now you can see, now look at this lady here. As she jerks her head around, you can see this hair moving, and it's moving in accordance to her movement. See there? That's what it is. Now, another thing a lot of people cracked on the side, the windows inside the mission look rectangular, but the ones on the outside were not rectangular. They don't look rectangular in the mission. Where did they come up with that? If you really look at it, they're not. But also bear in mind, there's probably about 3 panes of glass, at least 2. There better be 3 for safety's sake on this thing, in case one of them breaks or 2 of them breaks. And you're going to have different mountains on the inside and the outside for each pane of glass. And you can see the moon out there. And you can see the curvature of the Earth, which you can see if you fly transatlantic or trans-Pacific from even 40 some odd thousand feet. And if you looked out the airplane windows. Now let's see, she's jerking her head around. That's right. Now she's upside down. You don't get upside down in a studio unless you're flying in a parabolic flight from like a KC-135, the vomit comet, as we used to call it, that some astronauts would train in. So then you have some preparation for zero-G, and a lot of zero-G experiments were done on the vomit comet and are done on sounding rockets. So this idea that there's no valid science can be done on sounding rockets is not valid. Because it costs a lot more to fly on an orbital rocket. And so you can start your experiments to get some idea of how it's going to run and some of the natures of things on a suborbital flight. But this flight was not about that. It was about tourism. I'll explain the value of that in a little bit, and why tourism has a value in and of itself. Now look at these windows. They're not rectangular. But here's one thing. They're all doing their little vanity things, flashing cards and doing this. Man, if I was on this flight, I wouldn't be wasting time flashing a bunch of nonsensical things to stroke egos and different things. I'd be looking out the window. But then again, I'm not some big media mogul, even though I'm here on YouTube. I would be glued to that window, or maybe just floating around having some fun. Now, there you go. You see, she is definitely floating out there, and everybody's doing different things. Watch the hair again. The hair responds to their movements. There's not wind inside. I don't know how many people have said, oh, there's wind inside the capsule. Well, heck, even if there had been, so what? But there's not. We're in a capsule. The capsule has atmosphere inside air. If it didn't have an atmosphere, they wouldn't be able to breathe. Yeah, they're flashing their silly little things, but see, it floats off. Their little daisy. And look, the hair is still kind of rigid. It's just up. It's not, laying down. It's relaxed in a non-acceleration by gravity type environment. 0G, as we call it. See, she's jerking her head around. And she's upside down, making a heart for the camera, posing for the camera. Media folks, what do you expect? These star-studded whatevers. This seems to be kind of looping some of the same stuff over, but that's what we got. Yeah, this video is just a kind of a loop video. So this is here on X, and let's see what else we can find. I definitely searched for some of the stuff where they're claiming it's fake. We'll talk about some of that in a moment. Yeah, oops. That's funny. Anyway, so they got their fancy space. Oh yeah, a lot of people have cracked on this door business because the door opened a little bit before Bezos got up there to do his ceremonial opening, as if that couldn't happen. But you got to bear in mind, what was the atmosphere inside? See there, it opened, and now he's up opening. So what? Yeah, it didn't have to open. It was already open. But some people, oh, they couldn't do that. Yeah, they could, because the atmospheric pressure inside the capsule was one atmospheric pressure, one atmosphere. 14.7 pounds per inch, just like, we have around here on Earth. So when you're at altitude and you're 0G outside, zero, almost no atmosphere, which in at 20 miles, the atmosphere is only 1% as thick as it is on the surface of the Earth at 20 miles. They went to over 65 miles, so they definitely were in a vacuum situation. And in that case, and even in an aircraft, when you're at, umpty 1,000 feet, the pressure inside will keep pressure on that door that opens to the inside in such a way that you couldn't possibly open. 14.7 psi across the door, the pressure differential adds up to like thousands of pounds. You're not going to be able to open an airplane door like that at altitude. So that's the case that, some people were chafing on that. Some people said the capsule should have been burnt. Some people were saying that one of the hands through one of the windows was not real, but you're looking through several panes of glass, and you're looking at tinted windows. These are just people grabbing for straws, trying to sound sophisticated or whatever. But they talked about the size of the windows. Well, if you look at it when they got outside the capsule, you'll see those windows are not as big as a person. They might look big when you're floating around the side, but they're really not that big. Even from the inside, you could tell that. So that's a bunch of hooey too. So I'm just picking on some of the things that some of the people are chastising about this flight. Now, one of the things I'll show you articles. Yeah, here she is kissing the ground. Katy Perry. Yeah, I'd be kissing the ground too. Now, they had these very expensive designer flight suits made up. I guess because they were trying to do a promotional thing. Maybe they're hoping to sell them. Some designer designed those things. So what? These are rich people. If they want to pull things, if they want to do that, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Really, it's just a vanity thing. But this is the kind of thing that people like that do. And there's a whole class of people that really like that kind of stuff. So, to each their own. It's their money. As I said, Lauren Sanchez is known for being a philanthropist. Now, here's nothing. Some people say her arm can't possibly reach over there. Well, no, go to the arm. It's white. It's her arm. It's not her arm. I mean, people are just picking on the dumbest things. The dumbest things are picking on. They're grabbing for straws. And if you know anything about rockets, you know that what they're grabbing at is ridiculous in many cases. Now, here we are coming in for a landing. About to see it puffs out gas just before it hits to cushion the blow, because it's still coming down fast, even with the parachutes. And so it slows it down just before it makes contact. Action, reaction. It throws out a powder of dust there in the desert. So, maybe we should blow that up.
There it is. Puff of smoke when it touches down, a puff of dust. Actually, that's normal. A puff
See,
of dust.
the windows are trapezoidal shape. It's almost rectangular, but not quite. But you can see that inside the flight too. Who's saying it's all not the same? Anyway, and the parachutes fall off to the side. That's what parachutes would do in a case like that. And so when they recovered it, and some of the video you can see from the recovery in various places, you can see that people are picking on this in every way they can. Oh yeah, why aren't they wearing helmets? Well, because of the real spacesuits, like you'd go outside in extracurricular activity, are very expensive actually. So they weren't wearing pressure suits. They were just kind of like gym suits. They weren't pressure suits. So, it wouldn't make any sense to wear a helmet unless you were actually wearing a pressure suit. And they're hoping they got enough safety margin in that thing that they don't have to wear them. Astronauts flew on the shuttle had different suits than what they would wear if they went EVA, although they did have helmets on typically, at least a pilot and co-pilot. I don't know about the people sitting back in the aft deck. But in any event, so that's some of that. Let's see what it's going to find here. That's more of the same there, it looks like. Maybe that is the same. Shouldn't have been. I'll just show you some videos. I'm going to show you some articles. I don't know what we got here. This is off kilter. That ain't what I pulled up originally. It's just known for that. Then again, the guy's picking on the door. So what? That is totally doable. Somebody inside decided to open the door. And I forgot, we were supposed to have a ceremony for the door opening. Clearly, we had a rocket blast off. You can see people inside of it through the window there when it blasts off. So it's outer mannequins. You can actually see them. They climbed the tower. They went in the spacecraft. It went up. And the rocket and the capsule came down separately. Play here. Now, if you don't agree with me, you can say so below, but we're going to talk more about this. What was the Earth round? Oh my God. Yes. I got a video way back on this channel where I basically proved the Earth was round by the virtue of a solar eclipse that was occurring over Ecuador. Now you can go back and dig up that video. It's out. Oh my God. I don't see that. You never know what you're going to come across when you scan through here. That is not the same capsule there. Why are they even talking about this? And that's not what they were going in when they were retrieving them on the. So that's got tiny windows. That's just some mock-up. It had nothing to do with this mission. Why are they throwing it in here in this picture? Because they're trying to make some brownie points, I guess. Yes, you took a ride. Yeah, they did take a ride. But some people saying there's zero reason. We'll talk about the value of space tourism in a little bit. So just hang on to your hats. Why is space tourism a valid thing? So what? A cartoon below her kissing the ground. Somebody's trying to make something out of that. Here we are, wasting time in free fall, acting up. I don't know what that's all about. See, that window's got an angle to it. You can see it in that photograph, So where do you get this? They can see the angle, or see the angle on that previous view. I don't know where people are getting some of this stuff at. But anyway, but it may not be the same as inside just because the like I said, you're going to have like 3 panes in them. Every pane's got a different mountain structure. So let's see, where's all this pick up at? Yeah, right here. We got this model Ratajkowski, a woman with both a rat and a cow in her name. I don't know. Let's see, does she look like a rat or a cow? Maybe not too much. She is a model, but she's saying this whole thing is, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted. So beyond parody, end of the times type stuff is what she's saying here. Oh, give me a break. So a lot of people are cracking on this from every direction. A lot of feminists, leftists, everybody, saying that you care more about Mother Earth. Saying that you care about Mother Earth and it's about Mother Earth and you're going up in a spaceship that's built and paid for by companies single-handedly destroyed the planet. They're not destroying, single-handedly destroying the planet. Give me a break. Jeff Bezos is doing this to try to get industry and a lot of stuff off Earth. Maybe I'll talk about that later too. But what he's doing in the end will be good for the planet, any way you slice it. And yeah, let me see. There's another comment somewhere. Is it in this article here? So yeah, somewhere somebody said all the carbon are burning. There were all our carbon problems. All the carbon are burning in this flight. Well, let me tell you, the engines are lots of hydrogen engines. What's that mean? They burn liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen. The output is water, pure water. It emits no CO2. They were not burning carbon. Oh, that was one of the big complaints in there somewhere that somebody was making. So people are making a lot of complaints about something they don't even know jack diddle about. That's why you got me. I'm your resident rocket scientist here. Yeah, I've built and flown rockets. Been doing rockets and spacecraft for decades. Decades, my friends, decades. Yeah, some people are even picking on Katy Perry for singing this, the King song. What a wonderful world. So what? Come on, guys. That's your mission profile showing how the capsule and the rocket separate. Well, it's a little safer and you manage to land into the capsule better that way. Besides, you don't have to, it's some, already on orbital trajectory. So suborbital trajectory, excuse me. So, and there they are, Jeff Bezos and some other guy in that photograph of the six ladies. And yeah, I'm going to talk about one of the suborbital tourism matters here in a minute. All studied, all female mission. Well, that it was. But holy smoke, the feminists cracked on them, setting feminism back. Why? Because they didn't have anything to do because they weren't real scientists. There was no scientific value to the mission. So what? I'm going to explain why that don't matter in a minute. Oh, yeah, these suits, they were very expensive to develop, I guess, in the stupid patch design. They should have really thought that one out. That was stupid. But anyway, so they're claiming these suits on the designer models $2.1 million in media exposure. Well, that may have went negative. Oh, they are sharp suits. They are sharp suits. The ladies look good. Maybe they're a little bit over made up. I don't care for all that makeup. Like I said, Lauren Sanchez plastic surgery looks a little botched right here on the edge of the mouth there, a little tight. She got that stretched a little too tight, in my humble opinion. I think she's 50-year-old. So I don't know. Tell me. If she's happy with it, and if Jeff Bezos is happy, what business is it of ours? See, this shows the logo upside down. No, that's the right side up portion of it. It looks like some kind of idealized space capsule. If you turn it upside down, it does look a bit different. So, and the other thing, if you were, they had a lot of people standing around watching this mission. They saw it go up and saw it come back down. They saw the people get out of it. So how's that in a studio somewhere? That would have been spotted. Plus, where it landed at, you could see the ground around it. There's no tracks of setting up some big forklift or something coming in and dropping it in place. They did send one to pick it up. So you got to recover it eventually. But I ain't got too many pop-up ads. I'm trying to blow this picture up. But, there's no major tracks around it. There are photographs of the not tons of footprints. They didn't build it there. It clearly landed there, and the people that were there to watch the flight could see all that. So how do you fake some 6 ladies climbing a gantry, getting in board a rocket? You can see their faces in the through the windows as it takes off. Now, guys, I might know a little bit about this. Why? Because I myself have had a hand in space tourism. This is the article where we went to a space conference, Tim Pickens and I, to enter our entry into the X Prize called the Liberator. We had 2 12,000-pound thrust liquid kerosene engines that were regeneratively cooled and had liquid injection thrust vector control. These engines had been tested extensively. They were far more powerful than what Burt Rutan had on Spaceship One. Now, the crew that helped engineer the engines, propulsion for Spaceship One, all came originally from my company, Hark, in our previous Halo program. This was going to be our rocket, but we're going to launch it at sea. That was the capsule. It was going to set up in here. And this was the escape tower. And we were going to use hybrid. Well, we had the hybrid rocket for the escape tower and the 2 engines, which we actually acquired from Space America, who Tim had also worked for earlier and actually built those engines himself. So this is an article published back in 2003, October the 13th. Problem is, we got into it too late. Burt Rutan was too far ahead of us. But Burt Rutan used our old hybrid engine technology to get his going. So, and here we are. This is me right here back in the day when I had probably no beard or not much of a beard and shorter hair. You know, I look so much better now. I'm really proud. And that's Tim Pickens. And this is the full scale mock-up of our capsule. And this is one of the engines over here. And there's another one. So there's an engine here, a tank. This was all at our rollout of our event. And somewhere on here, there's a whole bunch of pictures that you could see. Yeah, the gallery of images. Oh, we should look at that, guys. Just to show you, I've got my bona fides in this. Yeah, we had it wrapped up. We unfurled it here. There's Ern Furlan, myself, and Tim Pickens. And Tim and I had a lot of adventures. Let's just click the next button a few times. Maybe go out from that. This is one of the fuel tanks, an engine on it. This is me and Greg Marinac. Yeah, I didn't have a beard in those days, shorter hair. Some of you from the National Space Society might remember me back from those days. Back when I, for a period, ran the National Space Society. And here we are, my crew. I'm doing a passing review of the crew, introducing them all for this rollout exercise we had. This was our flight simulator. That's the that we had. That's the late Steve Mistakis, who was one of our propulsion engineers. I should do a whole thing just on this. I'm not going to, I need to get out of this because that's not, this is a little bitty suitcase hybrid rocket that we were demonstrating then. Y'all might remember this showed up on Pawn Stars. It actually did. This suitcase rocket showed up on Pawn Stars. One of our guys went out and took it there. I'll stop with this one. This is Conrad K. Dannenberg. He's the guy that designed the injectors for the V2 rocket. He's long passed away. He had been the deputy program manager for the Saturn V rocket at one time that sent men to the moon. I want to get out of this. I would just leave this whole little thing there. Just giving you guys some illustration of my background in what was going to be a space tourist vehicle. Now, I can talk more about this. Maybe I should do a specific video on this, maybe a joint video with Tim Pickens. But this is what I'm going to get to. Why does space tourism matter? Space tourism is one way to get small companies up and going. This was the hope, to get them some revenue so they could develop greater, bigger boosters to be able to fly more things into space, into orbit, so that we could advance the commercial space industry to make space access more affordable. I did fly a rocket balloon project under something called the Cheap Access to Space Prize. And I can show you our Hart Cat's Prize rocket and flight. And it's been in some of my previous videos. You may have seen it, where we launched it from a high altitude balloon out over the Gulf of Mexico, launched from a ship. I've also discussed in some of my videos how Chinese could use the same kind of technology against us to EMP, to do a sneak EMP attack on our country. I showed how all that could be designed easily and how it would evade detection and shoot down. I've gone through that. So these are things that I know about because it's things I have done 25 years ago, long ago. These are technologies that I developed and practiced with my team. We had a lot of good expertise with us, but we were doing this stuff basically out of a couple of garages. We had an electronics shop in one garage and a propulsion rocket shop, a rocket building shop, and we had a test stand area. That's what those other photographs were from, where we used to test our rocket motors out near Gurley, Alabama, way out in the woods. So, guys, here's the thing. Some of us have the vision for the space development, space settlement. The whole idea being that we can eventually move a lot of our heavy, dirty, nasty industry off the Earth, at least some of it, into orbit, where you don't have all the heat problems from these things, the pollution. Space is already irradiated. It is highly radioactive. We're not going to, and the sun will sweep out a lot of the other contaminants. It's not, some place that you're going to contaminate with radiation and all these other things that some people worry about. And if you acquire resources from space and bring them back to Earth, you enable us better to operate here on the planet without loading down our biosphere as much. But it also is a chance to develop other settlements, other places. So should a catastrophe come along that wipes out Earth, and I think we're maybe really close to that, we are on the verge of potential World War III. We could have a biological catastrophe. We could have a nuclear catastrophe. Our civilization could be brought so low that we'll never be able to get back to the level we're at now. Because why? Because the civilization we have today was developed back in the era when you originally could pick up ores off the surface of the ground almost, poke a stick in the ground, and oil would come out. Now you're going offshore and then going to the ocean crust miles underneath and then drilling many more miles to get oil. And so it's not as easy to get these resources today. If our civilization was wiped out, it would be almost impossible to get back to the same level. So at least using the kind of technologies that we use today. There are prospectively other technologies, but they may be so powerful that we would probably wipe ourselves out almost instantaneously if they were widely available. Guys, 0-point energy is so dense that what might happen with that is mind-boggling. We're talking about if you could cohere a few cubic centimeters of 0-point energy and release it all, you're talking about detonating a planet. What if this technology, once you figured it out, could be built like cotton gins and everybody could have one? You ever see the movie The Forbidden Planet? I don't know, guys. Maybe this is why this technology is not widespread. Maybe why we're left playing with rockets. Why does Elon Musk not drive a UFO? I covered that in other videos because the power of this other technology is so off the charts that even the richest man in the world may not have the opportunity to play with stuff like that. And even presidents may have very limited knowledge of what might be possible. It's held extremely tight if such technologies are real, which, some people are hinting at that now, including the National Science Advisor for the president, including the president himself, and certain other things we've seen, such as the strange disappearance of MH370. I've talked about that, and there's a whole channel that does nothing but that, Ashton Forbes, 4 Orbs. Anyway, so there's some really strange stuff out there. But the whole idea, though, is that space tourism has a valid place in trying to get space settlement going, getting space industrialization going. And that is not destroying the planet. It is a way to preserve the planet in the end. You need to read up on Gerard K. O'Neill, read up on the high frontier. You can find literature on this on the website of the National Space Society. Go to their website. You can find a lot of literature on this, and you can understand the real dream, where we're trying to go with this stuff. Even Jeff Bezos, he showed his vision for these big rotating space habitats people could live inside of, with environments inside of them where it would actually form clouds and rain You could have trees and mountains and lakes. You could build some of these to preserve ecosystems in, replicate ecosystems on Earth up in orbit, where maybe they could survive whatever happened here. What was that movie from way back where the guys were trying to keep plants going? Logan's Run, maybe? No, it wasn't Logan's Run. What was that? I can't come. Somebody tell me in the chat below. I'll come to me as soon as I finish this video. But space can do, we could beam energy to Earth from space. Solar power satellites is the idea. Instead of wrecking everything down here on the ground and putting up, so many kilometers of solar rays on the ground, which actually disturbs the environment in its own way. I can talk about that in the future. I've talked about it before. So there are enormous opportunities for things we can do in space that would help preserve life on Earth, and maybe extend it further. If we put shield, when the sun starts getting more powerful and it starts to really cook the Earth, we might could extend life on Earth. And furthermore, by having new habitats in space. Right now, we got all our eggs in one basket. It's called that third rock from the star, this third rock from the sun. So hopefully, one day we will be spread across the solar system and out to the stars, so that we become a more resilient civilization, that we have a better capacity to survive. It's the ultimate prep. Settling other worlds, building our own mini worlds, is the ultimate prep for the civilization, for the species, and for life on Earth. So it has great value, great value. It could expand our economy dramatically if you can tap the energy and raw material resources of outer space. The asteroid Psychos is believed to be very rich in heavy metals, to include gold and platinum group metals. Maybe we can find rare earth metals up there. And some things might even be worth getting off Mars, but going to Mars to mine it is kind of dropping down another gravity well. I'm not sure what the economic benefit of going to Mars is. Asteroids, yes. Mars is a little more difficult in that regard. The moon, yes. Less energy, time required to get there. Getting on and off of Mars is very problematic, but it gives us another possible site for humanity to survive, thrive, and move forward. So there is value in space tourism. Now, as a space tourism, it's not about science. What it's about is getting the industry going, getting it going so that we can get somewhere with it. It is, so if you're a space tourist, you can be a rich whatever. And if you're paying to fly, or somebody's paying for you to fly, in this case, it might have been Bezos in some cases, then that is a valid reason to fly. It's good enough. So all these people chaffing, oh, this wasn't science, it didn't do no science. So what? It ain't all science. We're going to space to settle it. But to settle it, we need a big industry. Fortunately, because Elon Musk had deep pockets, he was able to really get it going up front. He had good ideas, got SpaceX really rolling. Blue Origin's been slower to come up the curve, but they are about to launch their next bigger rocket, which is the New Glenn, which will be a very powerful rocket. With SpaceX, we got all our eggs in one basket. If something goes wrong with Starship or happens to Elon Musk because some nut job wants to do him in, that might short circuit that path to the future. So we need as many paths to the future, many roads to space as we can have. We need smaller companies going for it. Now, a lot of them are going straight for the satellite launch. That's good. That's good that they can do that. But space tourism offers a potential pathway also. It's risky, and it does put human life at risk. But these people need to understand the risks they're taking. If they understand it, fine. But, they shouldn't be no bones about it. You shouldn't be telling them, well, it's all safe and everything's going to be fine. No, it is risky to get on a rocket. Rockets go boom. Rockets have always gone boom, and rockets always will go boom. Allison's 3 laws of rockets. If you quote me, because it's Allison's laws of rockets. But our job is to make them go boom less often, to make them more reliable, more resilient. We can actually colonize space, develop space, large space habitats with rocket technology. It can be done. So especially as you bring the cost down, like Elon Musk is doing, like nobody else has come anywhere close to bringing rocket costs down the way he has. Hopefully Blue Origins will be able to do the same, and some others. But Blue Origins has used a model of using space tourism initially. So it's gained a lot of experience from their personnel in flights and flight ops. So when they actually get to fly the New Glenn, hopefully it'll go smoother. We'll see. They don't believe in the flight and test it the way version that SpaceX follows, which I think is good, with the exception of flying a very powerful atom bomb type energy device near communities in Southeast Texas, which I do take a little bit of exception. I think SpaceX ought to be flying those off of a barge somewhere. But aside from that, I'm very much rooting for SpaceX. And I just got my fingers crossed and hope it don't one of those things don't explode close to the ground like the N1 rocket did, which had less than half the fuel of a Starship and flung debris for 6 miles. Now, if you look at what's within 6 mile radius, you'll see it's not pretty in Southeast Texas. I've talked about that previously on this channel, but I do root for SpaceX. I do hope them the best. I am really, really, really hoping SpaceX pulls off what they're trying to do, because Starship will be a game changer big time if they pull it off. And they're getting close. They're getting really close. So I got a lot of hope in what they're doing in that regards. But I like Jeff Bezos' long-term vision for settling space. Better, he's not aiming at Mars. He's aiming for the O'Neillian type space habitats. Again, go look up Gerard K. O'Neill in his book, The High Frontier. There was also a book called The High Frontier, written by General Graham, I believe. I'm getting a little foggy up here. It's been many years. And that was about the Strategic Defense Initiative, aka Reagan's Star Wars program, which may see a new resuscitation in President Trump's Golden Dawn. That's a whole separate topic. But now I've done videos on this channel talking about how you could stop all hypersonic missiles by using a approach with big, heavy-duty solid rocket motors. I'm not going to repeat that today. I got a lot of content in this channel that you can go back and look at for rockets, rocket motors. You can see the air turbo rocket. You can see the F1 rocket engine. And I've been thinking about just doing a course on rocketry to explain the basics of rocketry, because most of your channels are only talking about what's going on now, or they'll talk about each little widget on the Starship, but nobody's actually laying out the basics. Now, for if you're already on board, that's fine. But there's a lot of people watching that really don't understand the basics of rockets, or they wouldn't be saying, "Oh, look, this thing didn't go to space because it don't have the char marks on it." Well, it went above the von Karman line and would not have had the char marks because it didn't go 70,500 miles an hour. Little things like that. Oh, how did they open the door? Pressurization was equalized. That's how they opened the door. Just dumb little things like that. The people don't know the basis because they're not rocket scientists, but I am. So I can bring it to you. So been there, done that. I punched the card. I got a Space Pioneer Award from it, from the National Space Society in 1997 for entrepreneurship. So yeah, that's because I had a private venture of my own that I was running on the side. Anyway, my friends, that's the skinny on it. That's the story. And I just want you to understand that there is value in going to space. And if it's uber rich people, getting their joyride, so what? So what? Vanity, yeah, okay. That's what you got to put up with those people. Yeah, the crew look cool. They look good. But personally, I'd prefer skipping all the makeup and all the bells and whistles. To me, that's all just, you're putting on a fake mask and you put on all that makeup. Maybe your face will crack when you smile. Or maybe your plastic surgery is so tight, if you smile too much, you might rip your jaws. I don't know. I prefer real people, personally. Like my women, really real. But that's just me. There's nothing wrong with what they did, technically, physically. It's just different, and it left a lot of people out there to criticism. Some people are going to criticize anything and everything, and a lot of people are just criticizing because they just don't understand. That's why you're watching me. I understand it. Yeah, some of you are going to throw, I get flat earthers. You can definitively prove the Earth's round, and they're still going to argue with them. One of these days, I think we need a special flight with SpaceX gets going. We need to pack a Starship with flat earthers and fly them around the world. They'll land, they'll still think the world's flat. I don't care what. We just had a Dragon capsule from SpaceX fly over the poles. And interesting, the South Pole was all in just one place. It wasn't spread around the entire planet. Anyway, but I can prove you with just about every sunset where there's clouds in the sky or sunrise that the Earth is round. Yeah, that's another topic, but maybe I'll do a video on that. So I just want to thank everybody for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video, and be sure to subscribe, bang the notification bell, and click all, because I need subscribers. I need watch hours. But leave a comment below if you disagree. Tell me why. I just got, well, just put it in the comments below. If you agree, put that in the comments. But anyway, thank you for watching. And I hope everybody has a great upcoming Easter weekend. Greg out.